Hello and welcome to the I3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography here at the School of Visual Arts. I'm Tom Ash, the program chair. This spring 2023 season is curated by our wonderful faculty member, Elizabeth Avedon. On her behalf, I'm happy to introduce our speaker, 3D artist and lifestyle photographer, Ignacio Ayestarán. Thanks. Ignacio has been making photographs since he received his first camera at the age of 9. He received his master's from the Tisch School of Arts at NYU. Ignacio's commercial projects as a 3D artist over the past 20 years have received many accolades, including an Emmy Award for his work with the Discovery Channel. Ignacio's photography has been used by many companies and publications over the years, including Apple, Peter Luger's, Steaks, yes, very important, Viacom, the New York Times Magazine, Lonely Planet Publications, Smithsonian Magazine, Condé Nast Digital, BBC Worldwide, and Volkswagen do Brasil. A relatively new part of Ignacio's practice has been the use of artificial intelligence. He will discuss his use of AI in his image making in today's lecture. Please join me in welcoming Ignacio Ayestarán.
So let's start by, my name is Ignacio, but I go by, many people in the industry call me Iggy. Other people outside call me Nacho. In Spain, we don't have nachos, so there's a lot of people named Nacho, and it was quite a surprise when I came over here with the whole nacho cheese thing. Luckily, Nacho Libre came out and it made it a little cooler. So you can call me Nacho or Iggy, because it is a mouthful. But anyways, just wanted to tell you a little more than what Tom said. It's like I came to New York after graduating from college. Pre-internet days, I was interested in doing film scores. And I found some sound design courses at NYU, and they were offering a computer graphics course at the same department. So I signed up for that because computers were the future. And I was lucky enough to be part of the first 3D class coming out of NYU. And sort of that's what I concentrated on. I started working in '94, and my first project was a really bad Stephen King movie called Langoliers. Don't look it up. I've been working in the commercial industry in New York ever since. I started as a modeler and texturer, but at the time, pretty much we did everything. And for the last 15 years, I've been concentrating myself in lighting and compositing. And photography has always been a part of my life. My dad was an avid photographer. And in the CG industry, in texturing, in lighting, it goes really side by side. It's not uncommon to see many CG people also practice photography on the side. In '09, Getty Images invited me to join them after submitting a portfolio of 500 images, which was quite a bit at the time, pre-digital. So, and I was with them for 12 years. And last summer, some friends of mine in the industry started playing with AI. And I was seeing all of the stuff that they were posting, but everything was sort of beta and by invitation at the time. And that's pretty much, I wanted to see what I could do with my photography, what AI could do, where it could take me, and it brought me here. So, so that's a little bit about myself. And I'll just start then with my presentation, if you don't mind. So I'll first be speaking about prompts. And this is sort of like my journey, because it's a little confusing. even nowadays, I've been doing it for like a good 7 months, and it's gotten a lot easier. But it's still very hard to get like the results that you want. So this is my first image I ever did on the left. You know, obviously you can tell it's like I did not know what I was doing. And on the right over there is one of my latest images. So I'll be talking through how I went from here to that one. So like I said, it's like my sister told me there's no chapters. You should take that off. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. So, but I'll be talking about prompts and writing effective prompts, and then I'll be moving on about my experience with the two different softwares, with DALL-E and Midjourney, and how my whole evolution of prompt writing and editing. So a prompt. A prompt is a very basic set of words or phrases that describe a scene or an image. And when input into an app such as Midjourney or DALL-E, it'll create an image based on that. And the quality of the image will depend on the description of it. For me, writing effective prompts entail a lot of research. Considering the context, being specific, descriptive language. I use my images a lot. You're always fine-tuning, and it requires a lot of patience. For this image, for example, I wanted a picture of an elder Mongolian lady. And these are some of the things that I had to research. I found out there's 33 different tribes in Mongolia, so I had to figure out which tribe, which image I had in mind, and where she belonged to. And each one of those 33 tribes have specific clothing, even though the main attire, the name, the dil, is good through all Mongolia, but the patterns and the colors change drastically from tribe to tribe. The same thing applies with the headdresses. And some of you, if you've seen Phantom Menace, you might realize that this image here is exactly taken from like the princess in Phantom Menace in Star Wars. So that was a nice discovery. And the same thing with the jewelry. It's all very tied in to the regions and the tribes throughout Mongolia. When it comes to context, things that are important to know are your locations, your settings, your mediums, whether you want photographs, you want posters, you want stickers. It's incredible. AI can mimic just about any medium you throw at it. Lighting, being a lighter, I'm biased to that. We'll discuss this a little more. And then style and composition. So mediums. As I mentioned, these are some of the different mediums that I've used. So we have like the photo, we have illustrations, we have stickers. It's like in posters, illustrations, paintings. But it's very important to start off with knowing what type of medium you want. The same thing goes with lighting. And like I said, being a lighter in CG, I'm a little biased. So I personally think lighting is really, really important. You can have a beautiful setting, but if your lighting is flat, the image sucks. The lighting is, for me, and this is why I chose to concentrate on it on my day-to-day work life, is what really makes the image pop and stand out. And most of the lighting terms from like cinema and photography do carry over, and even artistic. We have like chiaroscuro, cinematic volumetric, studio, dappled, rim, direct flashlight. Those are all terms that carry over from my other interest. But when I try, for example, butterfly lighting, I don't know if you guys are familiar with butterfly lighting, but it's a portrait lighting setup where the light is like slightly above the subject at an angle, and it creates a really nice butterfly shadow under the nose. So when I put that into my prompt, butterfly lighting, they're beautiful images, but I didn't intend to have butterflies. So sometimes you're better off just describing the lighting. I switched from butterfly lighting to describing light at looking down 45 degrees at subject and blah, blah, and that seemed to work. So although many carry over, as you see in this example, sometimes you just, as with everything in AI, you have to find ways around it. But here are some examples of the different terms that I showed before. We have like cinematic, we have moonlit, dappled, chiaroscuro, stormy, overcast, neon, and you never know when you might need bioluminescent, but it works. I mean, if you're doing something in Puerto Rico and you need bioluminescent lighting, well, it works. Don't worry. Styles. Styles can be cinematographers, can be artists, and in my case, I mostly stick to photographers. And along with styles also comes composition. But with photographers, what I've done, I've accumulated like a list of my favorite photographers and the cameras that they use. And sometimes if you can get the information on their favorite film stock or their favorite lens, it always helps to get the results that you're looking for. But it's very important to, as you see here, when I take a simple prompt, a photo of a 40-year-old Irish woman, and then taken by, and then I put in each one of the photographers, whether it's Salgado or Capa or Giaccani or Leibowitz, it changes your image drastically. And not only is the style of the image that changes, but the subject as well. It applies time period. So if you have like photographers from the 30s, the hair changes. They tend to be black and white. You have Lucia Giaccani, which is an Italian fashion photographer. And you can tell it's like the subject is the most stylish out of all of them. We have Peter Lindbergh, a German photographer from the 80s. And you have like that wavy 80s hair. Or Norman Patterson in the 70s. So it's pretty amazing that just putting in the name of the photographer how much your result changes. And that's something that I'll also be getting into a little later on. But you have to be very aware that when you put things like this, it affects other wording that you might have used previously in your prompt. So, writing prompts. So this is not the way to write a prompt, and I'll show you why. But before I do that, I want to show you a little bit of the interface of Midjourney, which is the software that I currently use. So you have here at the bottom is where you input your prompt. And when you hit enter, it'll give you a set of 4 images. You can choose to run with any of those images by upscaling them. Or if you want different variations, you can choose to make variations. Once you choose the one photo, you can upscale it, and it'll give you options, other options, basically along these lines, but working with a higher resolution image. It's not always one of the things about AI is you never get the same result twice. So even if you choose, like, let's say you choose this, you choose this image here and you want that and you upscale it, it'll be pretty similar to that image, but slightly different. But
Which program are you using for this?
Midjourney. And you can tell Midjourney because of the imagine prompt. All of the Midjourney prompts start with imagine.
Oh,
Yeah.
but I thought like just it's not Discord, whatever.
Yeah, well, Midjourney Discord is the company, and Midjourney is like the app.
Oh, so you would download Midjourney.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense.
So anyways, so here's a sample of a simple prompt that sort of takes into account the things that we learn. So we have a medium, which is the black and white photo. Well, I will jump. We have the black and white photo. We have the subject, and we have the context, the location. So we have an Indian girl from the Waharat tribe, and she's wearing a Jadao bridal set. So we have also, it's like location and jewelry. And it's taken with a Hasselblad 500 and the lens, the 135, which I stuck that in because it's a lens I could never afford. And I was like, if I can't use it in person, I might as well try to use it in AI. And then in the style of Annie Leibovitz and with studio lighting. And then other modifiers or adjectives, you know, a dark background, soft focus, medium format photography. And it gives me a whole bunch of results. It gives me results as you saw in fours. So you roll it and roll it and roll it until you finally get one that fits what you're looking for. And in this case, I went with these two. I like the way the veil or the bupata was sitting on her, because that was part of the image I had in my mind. I liked the angle that she's looking at camera. So I decided to run with this image, and I copied the link address of this image, and I made a new prompt, and I inserted here the link to that previous image to use as reference. And I reiterated once again that it is a young girl from Waharat. But now I'm going to be introducing color. So she's wearing a colorful chaniya choli, which is the typical Indian attire. It's like very colorful. Again, Annie Leibovitz, medium format, and then desaturated blues and reds. And I just threw in Kodak film. And out of the many that I got, I like these four. I decided to run with this one. It reminded me a little bit of McCurry's Afghani girl with the green eyes. And I just liked the way the bupata was sitting on her and the way she's looking at camera. So I scaled it up. But as you can tell, there are many things that are wrong with this image. You know, we have over here, it's like the dress doesn't go all the way up. There's a hole over here. This is crooked. And, well, I don't know. So with every image, just about every image that I get in AI requires a lot of Photoshop. There's a lot of mistakes. You probably heard that AI can't do limbs, can't do fingers. You'll be surprised. It is horrible, some of the things that, well, if we go back, I don't know if you can tell, but look at her hands. You know, they're all swollen and broken, and even here there's like intersections. And so every image, just about every image requires a lot of Photoshop. And this one did too. It's like even the jewelry here, it's all messed up. So I took it into Photoshop. I switched the eyes with a photo I had taken, and just pretty much fixed it all up. I switched the eyes mostly because that old saying that the eyes are the windows to the soul. For me, when I see images in AI, the eyes are always a dead giveaway. So I'm always, I mean, it sounds morbid, but I'm always like switching the eyes or concentrating on the eyes. But this was my final result. So that's pretty much my take on like the intro to how to go about writing prompts. There's a lot more to writing prompts. You can add weights, for example, to certain parts of your prompt to emphasize it more than the others. You can play with aspect ratios. You can play with chaos, where you let the AI sort of take over, so you can control how much you want the AI to influence your image. But that's a whole different part, which I really don't have time. But this basically, if you were to go, you saw my Totoro prompt. It wasn't anything like this prompts. So hopefully, this is sort of enough for a starting point if you guys ever decide to give it a whirl. So next I'll be moving on to my adventure. And when I started in July, DALL-E was pretty much the only AI app that was out of beta. Midjourney and Discord and Stable Diffusion were around, but it was invite only. So I really have no option but to start with DALL-E. And I read an article about how many artists starting in AI were using Vermeer as a starting point. So I was no different. So I wrote an early prompt of a painting of a young Japanese girl wearing a floral kimono, an oriental turban, and what appears to be a large pearl as an earring, with a colorful bird on her shoulder. And basically mimicking Vermeer's lighting, source coming from window at sunset left of camera. And these are the results that I got. And I was pretty amazed, considering where I had been with the Totoro to this. I kept pestering my wife. Oh my God, look at this. Can you believe it? It's like, this never existed until I just put these words together. And the euphoria lasted a while, but you can tell there's like lots of errors, like the bird. I don't know why the bird is up there. And then I started playing, changing like the bird instead of the bird on the shoulder, feeding the bird, holding the bird, surfing bird. The kimonos, I started playing with the textures, with the backgrounds. And my images started evolving, started improving. At one point I wanted her like holding a dead bird. And then all of a sudden skulls started appearing everywhere, which is like, okay, I won't be doing that, because it was definitely not what I wanted. But then little by little, I started progressing. The cat ate the bird, and my subject aged. And I started inputting terms like photorealism painting, and started switching countries. Mongolia, and it got to a point where I was ready to leave the whole painting world behind, and I'm like, I'm going to try a photo, I'm going to try something more contemporary, break away from this whole Vermeer theme. And I implemented a photo for the first time on my prompt. And I wanted a young Japanese tattooed woman with a black eyeliner, long, messy black hair, embracing a fox, Hasselblad. And these are the results that I got, which were, I was not expecting this. And it was a nice, pleasant surprise. But at this time, my credits with DALL-E ran out, and I was getting a little tired with DALL-E. I couldn't get my images to work with DALL-E. I was getting tired of the 1-to-1 aspect ratio. I wanted a little more. I wanted to break out away from that. And Midjourney had just gone public, and it was available. So I decided instead of instead of spending my money with DALL-E, I decided to give Midjourney a try. And from the get-go, I was really surprised because the great thing about Midjourney is that you can see everybody's work. Every user on Midjourney, you can look at what they're creating, and then you can look at the prompts that they're using to create those images. So it's a great learning. It was a huge step for me. So I decided to, based on some of the prompts of the images that I was looking and liking and were sort of in par with what I was looking for. Not a big departure from my DALL-E, but I'm introducing words like soft focus, sentimental atmosphere, ultra realistic photography, stuff that I wasn't able to put in DALL-E. And I started getting more, there were like softer, more artistic details. It started evolving. I started playing with like women from Ethiopia with their garments, women from Afghanistan, jewelry. I was really enjoying this whole part of researching. What really attracts me to all of this in my travels through Southeast Asia is you see how quickly everything is disappearing. And I don't have the time nor the means to go and capture it. So for me, this was a way of having those shoots, of having those trips, albeit virtually. But, I wasn't interested in doing futuristic images, or fashion or anything. For me, I was trying to capture something that I sense that is fleeing really quickly. And I was loving it. And then one day on the way home, my neighbor is an artist and a writer, and he works for MoMA. And he had seen I was putting all of this stuff online, and he was like, Nacho, I want to come over to your house and I want to input some of my writings, and I want to see what AI gives. I'm really curious to see how it would interpret my writings. And that got me thinking. I was like, wow, why didn't I think of that? That's like really cool. So I went home, and it's like I discarded all my women, and I decided to go with James Hilton, because visually the whole idea of Shangri-La was the way he describes it. And in the book, from a child, I remember it was something that was very appealing, very magical. So I decided to take his description of Shangri-La and put it in the prompt. So we have the black and white, ultra wide photo, again, this time with the Mamiya. A 6-year-old Tibetan boy standing on a cliff looking at Shangri-La. And then I put in Hilton's description of Shangri-La. And then I add other adjectives to it, such as a mythical Himalayan utopia. I want birds, I want dramatic skies, I want an unreal setting. And now I started using these two artists, which are concept artists for Blizzard Entertainment, and I really admire their work, and I thought it would be interesting to see what they could bring into this image that I had in mind. And the results that I got were mind-blowing. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Just from his description, it's Shangri-La. And started evolving. I went from one boy to two. I started playing instead of a cliff. It's like I tried to get the passage out from the cold to the green. I couldn't get that to work, but it got me inspired into this whole Lost Children series, and once again captured the vulnerability of when you're a child, and also for me growing up in Spain. And for many of you, pre-internet days, the world was a lot scarier. Nowadays, everything is really reachable. But for me, the world, honestly, was through RJ and Tintin, and that's how I found out about like the Himalayas or Africa or South America. But there was like the whole sense of adventure. But at the same time, being a child, being vulnerable and emotional and sometimes despair. And I wanted to catch that. And for the last 3 or 4 years, I have been going to Oregon a lot to work at Leica House. And I fell in love with the whole coast. And I had these photos lying around that got me thinking of putting the Lost Boys series into maritime disasters, into like the sea. And I had these photos that I had taken of my daughter, since she was little, in our travels, always looking away from camera, trying to get her alone in the vastness of the places we were going. So I started mixing those photos in my prompts. And this was the prompt that I wrote. And I chose 1911 because I was thinking of like the whaling ships, storms, Ireland. I wanted that whole powerful sense of disasters. No, not disasters, but like emotion. The whole maritime history in Ireland and people losing their husbands, and I wanted to sort of like get that in there. So I chose, you didn't see at the top, but I was referencing my photos, and I referenced the Oregon coast, and then I had like the majestic abandoned lighthouse, and then once again those two style concept artists from Blizzard Entertainment. I wanted dramatic lighting, and I chose Annie Leibovitz, because she's got that sort of like many times, especially in her studio work, she's got like that magical sense about her work. And these were the results that I got. And you can tell it's like 1911 plays a big input into this too. It's like giving me that daguerreotype feel to the photography. But you can clearly see also, it's like from my photos of the Oregon coast and that of my daughter. So I was really happy with these. It was pretty much what I had in mind. I started like changing the lighthouse for like shipwrecks and different settings. I took him out of the beach and put him in some tall grasses. And then I started playing with forest, and I did this whole research thing about like the most beautiful forest around the world, and I would like put those in my prompt, and it was really amazing how much the results changed, how true the results were according to the forest that I put in, which was really impressive. So different settings again, just like trying to capture that world that I felt as a kid, the whole magic thing of adventure. And then I started thinking, okay, maybe I should go back to where I was, and it's like trying to capture more about, like my wife is from Japan, and I remember it's like the first time I went from Japan, I was really awestruck by how the whole technology aspect and the past and how interwoven it is. You know, I come from Spain and everything is Roman, you know, so everywhere I go in Europe, it's Roman, you know, and we do have, like in my town of Valencia, we have our attire, which we put on during Holy Week, during Easter. But that's it. If you were to see a woman going to work wearing that, you would think that woman is crazy. You know, but in Japan, you're in the middle of Shibuya, you got like the Shinkansen, the bullet train, you got like all these people around you, and you'll turn a corner and there's like a little statue, it's like of a Buddha, and somebody's taking the time to knit like a little scarf so the Buddha is not cold. Or you'll see it's like a man wearing a kimono holding a briefcase, or a woman wearing a kimono. And I remember for my wedding, seeing my wife get made up, and it was like a whole process. It was just like a ritual, and it was very captivating to me. But I remember also that she hated it, because you can't move. You can't. It's very hard on you. It's heavy. That the hair is super heavy. It's hard for you to walk, to breathe, to eat. And I started wondering, well, how come that hasn't evolved? You know, how come nobody's thought about making like new versions of the kimono that are actually more comfortable for women to wear? Because I mean, I think it's beautiful that that tradition's still there. So it would be nice to see, it's like an evolution of it. And I started thinking, well, it's like, what if I wonder what a kimono would look like with modern designers. And so I started concentrating on what I wanted my subject to look like. So I took this picture of my sister-in-law that I took at her wedding. And I found on ArtStation, I found this painting by Andrei Ryobovich, which sort of captured the whole European aspect of what I had in mind, and I wanted to blend those together. So I put those together in a prompt, in a very simple prompt, because sometimes you're better off experimenting with what you really want out of the photo. In this case, I really wanted like the subject. I wanted to see what these two images would look like together. I didn't care about it's like that, the cameras. I didn't care about the photographers. I just wanted to see how these two images work together. So I put them together, and you can see those are their link address, and just a simple prompt, a photo of a young Victorian Japanese woman dressed in a traditional kimono, wallpaper background by Annie Leibovitz. And these are the results that I got. And you can see, especially with this one here, that the angle is pretty much the same as that of my sister-in-law. The hairstyle, the way she's looking, and then I like the whole embellishment that the other painting brought in, it's like of the flowers in the hairs, and also it's like the flower patterns on her dress. So I decided, okay, I'm going to stick with these two images, and now I need a designer. And the first designer that came to mind was Alexander McQueen, because I had the whole Victorian thing going, and he's all into like the Gothic and the Victorian and the heavy fabrics and like the dark rich colors, and I'm like, I'll start with him and see how it goes. And I wrote this prompt, so it's like, again, I'm referencing those two photos, and a photo of a Victorian Japanese woman dressed in a Roman Gothic Victorian inspired kimono designed by McQueen, with the dark colors and thick fabrics and red laces. And I was like, wow, that's pretty good. But it wasn't, I mean, they were beautiful and they met what I was looking for, but the kimono still remained sort of the same, you know. I wanted to try something bringing more into the modern age. And so I was like, hey, why not Issey Miyake? You know, I love his philosophy of the pleats and working with recycled materials and working out of one big piece of fabric, no, not cutting, not sewing. So I was like, okay, so let's give him a try. And again, sourcing those two images and Baroque Japanese woman, and I put intricate pleats by Issey Miyake and it's like the colors. And the results were really nice. But it didn't really look like Issey Miyake. You know, it was like, I had some pleats over here, and previously, you know, you had some pleats here, and maybe those could be considered pleats. So I started wondering, well, what is it that's preventing what is it about my prompt that's preventing the kimono to actually be affected by what I'm asking? And I came to the conclusion, I decided to try each photo that I was referencing individually. And when I took out the painting and just stuck with my sister-in-law, I altered my prompt a little bit. It's like I implemented the pleated nylon taffeta and polyester twill kimono, which is the materials that he uses. You know, and I actually put in like Pleats Please collection. And now the kimono started looking more like what I really wanted it to look like, but the magic was gone. You know, it's like the flowers, the essence, it's like it wasn't the same. So I mean, I was happy that I found the solution, and it's like it was a nice experiment. But I was ready to move on, and I moved on to Hanae Mori, which another Japanese designer, which one of the only two Asian women to ever have had shows in Paris and in New York. And I loved her aesthetic that she uses a lot of Japanese motifs with European couture designs. So I decided to forego my sister-in-law and that other image and work with these two images that I had acquired through all my testing and really captured. I really like this one here. It's like I like the way her stance and her look. And I love the kimono on this one. I started playing with terms. And even though I didn't want my kimono to look like something out of Hanae Mori, but I did want it to combine Japanese motifs with Western couture techniques. So I put that in, and then I went crazy. I don't know what happened, and I decided to, it's like, I wonder what a Dubai kimono would look like. You know, I had seen a lot of like really cool photos of Korean kimonos coming out of Vogue Korea, and I'm like, well, why don't I try something along those lines, just something really wacky. And as you can see, I'm also using Kodak Ektar and a lot of terms that I couldn't get to work previously in DALL-E, but in Midjourney, they actually bring a lot to the photos. And then I started getting these, and it was actually what I was looking for. It's a Dubai kimono, and it's like it was really cool. And I had like the whole flower motifs. And then going along the lines of collaborating, you know, of mixing the Japanese and European, Yoshio Kubo. Yoshio Kubo is a young Japanese designer, and in 2017 he had like this great collection where he was mixing 80s LA gang style fashion with Yakuza fashion, and I was like, wow, that would be really cool. It's like, I wonder what that would look like on a kimono. And thinking of gangs, I started thinking of leather. And I'm like, wow, a leather kimono could be very interesting. and I try that in the prompt. So a modern black leather zipper kimono designed by Yoshio Kubo, inspired by 80s LA gangland and Yakuza fashion. And everything else is the same. You know, it's like, I like Annie Leibovitz. She's not the only one that I use. I use Paul Walker, and depending on what I'm looking for. But for these frames, I like what she brings to my results. And this is what I got. And I was like, you know, out of everything that I've done so far, this comes the closest to what I was looking for when I first started with this whole kimono thing. Because I could see people actually wearing this. And I don't know if it's going to be more comfortable than the original, but I really love the look. And then I discovered this wacky, crazy hairstylist called Ryoji Masumi, and I decided to throw him into the pot and see what he could bring. And so, just like with the lighting, sometimes you're better off describing what you're looking for than just saying, it's like throwing in a name. So this time I'm using a parachute fabric kimono, and then I'm describing Ryoji's his hair wrapped in woven colorful strands of straw into a braided crown. And it just took it to a completely different level. Keeping the same aesthetics for what I was looking for in the kimono. And then I threw him in, I took him away from being a hairstylist and I put him in as a designer with Kubo. And this was the last image that I got. And that's pretty much the whole, my journey up to this point. I've been experimenting with other things. Lately I've been doing, using my photographs that I've traveled from like Turkey and Japan and Spain. And I've been researching a lot of the artists that were involved creating those vintage posters from the 50s and the 60s. So this is my latest series, and they're all based on my photos. But these do really require a lot of too much work. It's almost not worth it. But like putting in the lights, putting in the people, putting in like the high-speed ferry that goes to the islands, but I'm loving this whole part. Is completely different from everything that I've done before, and I feel like my photos are a little more involved or taken into account in this, and I'm getting a lot of interest on these. You know, I'm learning about NFTs. You know, everybody, it's like I want to buy this as an NFT. It's something I'm looking into. I wasn't really looking to make anything out of it. For me, it's just my enjoyment and see what I can do with my photos and where they'll take me. But this is where they're taking me lately. And that's about it. I hope you enjoyed it.
The images that you produce, how you call like yours, how does it work, that part?
So let me go back. So when you have a photo, or you find a photo, maybe I shouldn't be telling you this, but when you find a photo online that you want to use, you can right click on it, and you copy that image link address. And then you insert it at the beginning of your prompt, like here. So this tells Midjourney that everything that comes afterwards is basically based on that first image that you inputted.
And by doing that, that photo that you create is going to be yours and you can use.
No. Oh, you mean the copyright?
Yes.
Oh, well, are you sure you want to open that can of worms? I mean,
There is a way to summer. I don't know if there is a way to summarize.
no, there's no such, as of now, there's no such thing as copyright. Last, in the fall, there was a case of an artist that created a manga, and he tried, what do you call it, it's like a visual book, and he tried to get it copyrighted, and he lost, mostly in part because, you remember in the 90s, there was like this photograph of a monkey that he took a selfie, and it went viral. And the photographer, the British wildlife photographer, took Wikipedia to court because they were using that photo everywhere, and according to him, had cost him a lot of revenue. So he took Wikipedia to court, and he lost because he did not take the photo. The monkey did. Even though he spent all this time with those monkeys and he set up the camera in a way that made it very easy for the monkey to take a photo, but the actual photo was not taken by him, and the courts declared that you could not give copyrights to a monkey, and they applied that to this case with the artist and his creation, and he lost. So in my case, with what I'm doing, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, because I'm using my own photos to create stuff, but it still is pulling stuff from line. So it's more of a gray area, but as it stands right now, there's people putting children's book out created by ChatGPT and illustrations created by Midjourney, and nobody's winning any copyrights. So, which makes sense.
I can tell you because I've written a textbook on copyright, and a lot of you know that I know a lot about copyright. It's not copyrightable.
Right.
That's all. I mean, it's not a gray area right now on that. It's pretty much the outputs are not copyrightable because
So
it's not
even
produced
if
by
I'm using my photos to generate those images, because the results that I'm getting would not be those results
It's
if
not
I
a
didn't input
derivative.
my own images.
The argument would be, is it a derivative?
Right.
It's not a derivative because it keeps putting out different things and the computer's making the decisions. And if you did the same prompts and the same picture to DALL-E instead of Midjourney, you would get other results. So the Copyright Office is saying that it's produced by the computer, not by human hand.
Mm-hmm.
It's an area that they're going to be looking into and everything else,
I'm
but
sure.
as of today, of this moment,
There's
it's just
no-
not copyrightable,
yeah.
unfortunately.
That's what I thought. Yeah. I thought it was funny that they used, from what I've read, that the monkey case was a big factor in that. Yeah.
Yeah, the recent one with the graphic book that the person put out. The book itself is copyrightable as a compilation, but none of the pictures were.
Mm-hmm.
They just ruled on that, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Interesting. Oh, let me say, I get also like a lot of questions about does grammar, structure, does it matter when you're writing prompts? From what I've encountered, it's like commas, no commas, spaces, no spaces, it doesn't matter. Some people say that it depends, things closer to the beginning take precedence over things that are towards the end. That hasn't been the case in my experience. And then I also get asked, it's like, are longer prompts better than shorter prompts? And it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes shorter prompts are better in the sense that the longer your prompt is, the more chances that the AI will get confused with something. So like in the case of my mixing those two photos together, or in the case you saw with the photographers, it's like one thing might negate another. So it's like the more things that you have, the more chances you have that like things will override each other. So those are just some of the, I get that a lot. Because you see a lot of people are using like quotations, are using parentheses, there's, no.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do we define what you're doing or what we're looking at or what we're discussing? Are these images? Are these photographs?
Oh, no.
Or are these AI? No, no.
Yeah.
What? Because everybody's talking about photographs, but they're not photographs.
No.
We,
I have a
agree-
huge problem with that.
Okay.
I see that every day. It's like from the very first image I posted online, I never used the term photo because
Okay.
they're not photos.
Correct.
There's no light going through. There's no.
Correct,
No.
correct.
I call it AI art.
Okay,
AI
okay,
portraits,
fair.
AI art.
Fair.
But there's many cases of like recently there was like this one person, he started also around in August, and he was like doing like street portraits, and he accumulated like, I don't know, like 1.7 million followers in very short time. But it's like he never put AI anywhere in any of the images that
No,
he
people are getting
he
in-
put online.
People are getting on. in
You know,
trouble
so,
with-
and people also, it's like submitting photos for photo contests, and they're like, oh no, I just wanted to. No, I have huge issues with that because it's not. I personally don't think it's not photography. No, is it art? That's another question, but
It's probably art.
no.
But we need to define what it is.
But it's like, as I was telling Tom earlier today,
Literature? Is it, what is it?
but photography also nowadays, it's come down to a whole bunch of like presets too. It's like, it's not like back in the days, it's like you open up Lightroom and okay, I want this preset, I want this other preset, it's like, and to what level are most people taking photos? Are they really involved in that photo in the end process nowadays?
Well,
so it's
photography-
interesting.
Photography is still light hitting something. It doesn't matter if it's surface, pixels, negatives.
Yeah,
There's no light in AI.
right, I agree with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, but it is a little bit of a
It's
mixing of things. There's artificial intelligence in our phones.
Yeah, all those presets and everything, those are all-
that are just in the things it's doing to create the images.
I just got this Samsung, and I just realized that you have like all of this AI presets in your photo editing, and it'll change your. So I mean, I know you said it's not copyrightable, but would that be copyrightable? I mean, it is my photo, and it's like
Yeah,
yeah.
that's completely.
But I'm using an AI. I'm using a preset that uses AI to.
It's a derivative of your original work.
But so are those.
No, because it's the problem they're going to have with the case with the photographer suing about it, is you have to. It's a common man test. Look at the original. Look at the output. Can the average person see that one was derived from the other one? Were there protectable elements from one into another? Yeah, it's two different things. When it's a mechanical thing on your phone of a picture that you took, then anything after that, no matter what you do to it, even with AI, it's your photo and it's copyrightable.
But I'm finding out with like this travel posters, this vintage posters that I'm doing, that what you said, it really applies to like the kimono series.
then
that
you
I
would be
showed.
covered.
I mean, you can't.
You could be
I mean,
covered.
There's aspects, but you know anybody could.
Yeah,
But with the
it's-
vintage posters, I'm finding out it's a completely different story because it is very true to the photos.
To
that
your
I-
photo, then the average person can see that one's the other, then it's copyrightable.
Yeah.
It's everything is case by case. I will tell you, I love the imagery, whatever you want to call it. Beautiful, beautiful images. I just love it. And I'm curious, are you making any prints from any of the kimonos
No.
or things like
Well,
that?
right now, the problem is that this technology is changing so quick. We're at a new version with Midjourney. And the previous version, you could input what size you wanted the output to be. and then when they rolled out the new version, it was back to it's like at the beginning again. So everything was like at 1024 by 10 or what, you know, I think it's like 1064 is like the biggest that you can go. And then you can scale up to like 2048, but you can't really, the original image that you get is always like 1064 by 1064. Yeah, I got Topaz, yeah.
But that will change.
Yeah. No, you know, it's already, and it was also it's like 1-to-1 aspect ratios with when the new version rolled out, and now we finally got back, you know, it's like any aspect ratio that you want. So it's changing. Yeah, no, I wish, I would love to see what these come out and look like in print, but. Yeah.
I'm just wondering how do photographers compete with this? Now, where is the space that, from a creative standpoint, that photographers can compete with this?
It doesn't
I mean,
work.
and you know, the thing is, a lot of these images look like they were done by the same photographer. Now, I assume that's because you're putting Annie Leibovitz a certain, but you know, with studio lighting. I mean, I'm just wondering, you know, where the space is for photographers. You know, as far as creativity. I mean, this is obviously going to produce a lot of beautiful work, but I'm just wondering how creatively photographers can compete.
I'll tell you, a lot of my friends in the industry, you know, because this whole AI thing also impacts my industry, not only photographers, but like CG and stuff, and concept artists, and lighters. It affects everybody. But my friends, people in the industry are like, we're the first ones to adopt it, you know, and they're using it sort of like as for like concept, you know, it's like get ideas and then take it from there. I'm amazed as a lighter. I'm amazed by the lighting and by the textures and the shading. It would take me weeks to get these results. And this spits it out in 30 seconds. But I don't think, and just like when digital photography came out and when I started in CG, CG is going to be the end of the film industry. All the actors are going to be computer generated and all the sets are going to be computer. No, you know, it's like 30 years into this. It's changed. Some people, I'm sure, lost their jobs, but it's like other people gain jobs, gain work. And the same thing with like ChatGPT. I know a lot of programmers that are using it at work just to get over the whole redundant part of coding, you know. So I don't think it'll be, I mean, for some campaigns, we've seen covers of magazines already. It's like done by AI. But I'm sure some photographers will lose work, but others will just learn how to put this technology to work for them.
So where do you see it in 5 years' time?
Oh, I don't know. It's moving. It's changing so quick. I mean, and I've been using this since August, and it's getting to a point where it's like I can't tell. You know, I can tell it's like the difference with portraits, but a lot of like the street scenes and stuff that I'm seeing, people, I can't tell. Besides the fact that everything looks like a really bad, cheap Wes Anderson. I don't know why Wes Anderson is like really huge in this whole thing, and everybody's doing that like the whole bubble fashion and the bubble glasses, and it's like, but I don't know. Now video is, the whole video world is being radically changed with all of this video editing. You know, it's like you can, the same thing I'm doing with images. You have a video and you have the subject and you want, okay, it's like, I want this video in this setting, and instead of this subject, I want that subject. Or it's like you have this car, I don't want this car here, take it out and give me a bus. And it's all real time. So.
Can you explain a little bit about how AI works technically?
I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know about any, you know, there's, going to the copyright thing. You know, I was with Getty Images, like I said, for like a little over like 10 years. And when I was using DALL-E, I was getting a lot of results that had clearly had the Getty Images watermark, and I don't have much love for Getty Images nowadays, but it's still wrong, and I don't get that as much with Midjourney as I do, but I do have an issue with this whole learning and it's like stealing everything and just sucking everything up. It's like a big black hole that's sucking everything up on the internet, and it's like putting it to work for people that, I don't want to say have no talent, but it's like just for everybody. It's not necessarily right. So, but that's how it works. It basically, I've tried many images. I see I get results with like people's what are supposed to be like names. So I'll take that image and I'll try to backtrack it in Google and see if I can find, the original. I can never find it, but it is very obvious that it is taking it from somebody in particular, or with like the Getty Images watermark. It is very obvious that what you asked for in your prompt, all of the images that it's like the majority of the images that it found to use to give you a result were taken from Getty Images, and that's why it's showing you that watermark. So it is. So that's how it works, whether you like it or not. There's a funny thing about prompt writing. For example, with photographers, McCurry, you can't use him as an example. There's many artists. I don't know how they managed to get their names taken out of prompts. But yeah, like Stephen McCurry, you can't use him. There's a lot of like supposedly safeguards. So you can't throw in like Donald Trump, or you can throw in, I tried like boudoir lighting the other day, and it wouldn't let me, and there was an artist I wanted to use, and his name was Willie. I couldn't use Willie, it's like, so there's a lot of like constraints. It's not necessarily all open, but you have no control over that. It's all down to like the companies and whatever it's like the legal system wants to do.
Just one quick thing, the use of the name is a commercial use of the name, but the style can't be copyrighted. You can't copyright a style.
Right.
So
no, but when
that's
you
a
say it's
weird
like
thing.
photo taken by, it's the actual Steve McCurry, you can't use him. I can use Annie Leibovitz, I can
'Cause-
use Paul Walker,
'cause he
Mark
could-
Adamus, I can use all other photographers, but him, it won't let me.
Yeah, it depends if they're alive, but use of their name is a use of publicity. It's the use of the name, not use of his style.
Right.
The style you can copy, just like you go to a museum and you're influenced.
Right.
There's a difference between influence and copying.
Right.
And the problem with AI, it's not a problem, but they're not copying. They're being influenced by the style, and that they can do. That I think the courts are gonna say that's legal. Just the same way you go in and you're influenced by Picasso.
Right.
Or you're influenced by any of the great artists. And do you copy them? No, but you might be influenced by them. Like I was known early in my career as a Norman Rockwell type photographer. I studied his work. I had bought books of his work. I never copied any of his images, but using the style is usable. But it's just the fact that you use the name. They could say, if you're using my name, that's a commercial use. And that's how they're preventing it.
And can an AI have style? Can it learn? I mean, it's like, because you're doing something in the style of, but how does the AI do a style? I mean,
So AI.
That's out of my pay grade.
anyways. All right.
Hi. I have a question about the ethnic of this work, because I see you use lots of East Asian culture in your images. What is your response to people having problem with you? Oh, you are cultural appropriating my culture.
Right.
What was your
Yeah,
response?
that's another big problem with AI right now. And since I started using in August, I see it slightly changing, but it's very white. You know, you type in, it's like, give me, I want a photo of a beautiful woman, and all it gives you is like it's white, 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 white. You know, or it's like, or an older couple, you know, a happy older couple, and it's always like a white older couple. You know, but if you put in like poor, all of a sudden it's like their color change. You know, which is, and in my case, I'm using it because, you know, like I said, I grew up in Spain, and for me visually, that's all I knew until I went to Asia, and it blew my mind. It brought so much more to my photography, to who I am, you know, and with my wife being Japanese, and it really enriched me, and it really affected me in a soulful way. And that's why, you know, I didn't even think about it when I started using it, you know, because I was working for my own photos, you know, and it's a huge part of my life, you know, the whole, you know, her family and traveling to Japan, and now with my daughter here in New York, she's part of the whole Japanese community, and we're really involved. So, but it is an issue. Lately, I've been noticing that it's changing with this new version. For example, with Midjourney, you're beginning to see more and more variation. Funny enough, when I started writing, I was worried about people stealing my prompts, so I started writing them in Spanish. And I'm like, because, you know, there's probably a lot less Spanish-speaking people doing AI than there are English-speaking. And my results changed. All of a sudden, it's like the results that I was getting were very Spanish. You know, they were like darker hair. They weren't like the tip, like Irish, you know, it's like redheads or blonde and blue eyes. They really looked, there was like some Moorish influence. You know, it really changed. Don't ask me. I haven't tried writing prompts in Japanese, so I don't know. It's like if that'll affect the results. But yeah, I am aware of that. It's like, I think it's a topic that's really discussed out there online, because it's coming up more and more. But in my case, to be honest with you, I didn't think about it. It's such an integral part of who I am as a person nowadays that it just, I mean, it would have been really boring for me to like do all of this with like Spanish, with the whole Spanish culture. It's like I grew up, and you know, Spanish culture is it's also like very heavy, and it's like the whole Catholic mom, and it's like it's you know, I'm in New York for a reason, and. No, but it is for me. It was just natural. It was just an extension. I admire it, and I appreciate it so much that it was. And the whole kimono thing. I remember every time we go to Japan, I try to get them to, you know, all of her family. They go and they dress up in kimonos and get their family portraits taken, except for my wife, because she hates putting on that kimono so much. So like with the kimono thing, I was like, well, what if the kimono wasn't so uncomfortable to wear? It's like, would she put that on? But yeah, there is that issue. I'm aware of it, and I hope I didn't offend you.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not Japanese.
One more question.
Have you ever used AI to write your prompts? See where that takes you.
No. I almost, you know, when I first started with this whole thing, I was so nervous, and I didn't know PowerPoint or anything, and then I found out there's an AI out there that will do your PowerPoint presentations for you. You know, you just tell it what the subject is, and it'll create a whole PowerPoint presentation. And at the beginning, I went into ChatGPT, and it's like I asked for, it's like, okay, give me like a good an introduction for a lecture, for a chat on prompt writing, and it gave me all of the stuff, but it was, the wording was too technical, and it wasn't who I am, but I had planned on doing this whole thing on AI, and then it's like at the end, it was like, ha, 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 it's like this whole thing was like created by AI, but I decided against it. But no, I haven't. But we were talking about these people doing books, writing, having ChatGPT. The thing about ChatGPT, you can not only have ChatGPT write the story for you, but then it will give you prompts based on that story it has just written for you to input into Midjourney and give you images based on what. So yeah, it's happening. it's there. I personally didn't do it, and for me, this is like personal work. If I wanted a picture of a cat, it's like I might go say, hey, give me ChatGPT, give me a prompt for a cat. I don't know. It's like for a cat in a pool. It's like drinking a piña colada. It's like I might go to that, but all of this for me is all really, it's like it's personal work. So.
I can sense your like keywords research part of like that love.
Oh, researching is so much fun. I'm learning so much. It's great. Yeah. Yeah. But it's like looking through the photos lately at Midjourney. I found, because now Midjourney has this. It's not an option, but when you go to look at your photo that you just rendered, it'll show you all similar photos that other people have rendered, and which is great, but at the same time, and then you'll see it's like somebody just wrote, you did all that research on the jewelry and the attire and the tribes and blah blah, and somebody just writes, beautiful woman from Gujarat, India, and it's like, and there it is. It's like that's all they had to write. So. But yeah, for me, research is part of the whole experience.
Thank you, Ignacio, for taking us on this journey with you today. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, everybody.